More spooky dragon dreams on House of the Dragon. I finally put all of the pieces of Helaena's puzzle together. I'm Erik Voss of the new Rockstars channel, and this is a breakdown of House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 7. Let's go through this episode scene by scene for all the deeper meanings, the changes from the book, and details that you missed. And for anything that spoils events that still lie ahead in the book Fire and Blood, we will save all of that speculation for the spoiler dungeon at the end of this video. The opening tapestry titles have been updated again. We see 2 soldiers of the Blacks dead, followed by a flip side of the tapestry showing 2 Greens dead. We realize that this is all from the Butcher's Ball last episode. These dudes are surrounding Criston Cole with an arrow in his face. 7 strands stem out from him as he really died in the light of the 7. Those vines grow into roots that stop at the Targaryen sigil. I think this is showing the spy network that invades King's Landing and the fracturing that Ormund Hightower is doing to Rhaenyra's forces. We open this episode in Helena's dream. Maybe this whole series is within Helena's dream. She wears this stunning new blue dress. Blue is, of course, the color of her dragon Dreamfyre. Her hair is also braided to form a kind of tiara. In this dream, Helaena is in the abandoned courtyard outside the Red Keep and finds this gray mare. This same horse will be part of her dream later, and it seems like it's going to be a horse that she hopes to escape upon with her 2 remaining children. But now the gates open as a warm light fills the courtyard. Is this morning sunlight? Is it fire? Is it the light of a sun that's about to be eclipsed? Before we can see what it is, she's woken up by someone calling her name, and we see Rhaenyra staring down at us as Helaena awakens. Not a fun image to wake up to. Based on the hour of the day, I'm assuming that this was just a day nap that Helaena was taking, and the queen was just not patient enough to wait for her to wake back up. Similar to the way you're not supposed to awaken a sleepwalker, something tells me that you should not awaken a dragon dreamer either. Rhaenyra says that she doesn't expect to hear from Alicent until... then trails off. Because yeah, she doesn't expect to hear from Alicent until Helena's brother, Aemond, is dead. Rhaenyra asks her if Aemond ever asked her to fly with him, and Helaena confirms yes, but says that when she was a girl, she wanted to fly, but now when she's with Dreamfyre, it's too much. By too much, does she mean her visions are too much whenever she touches her dragon? Is the too much specifically the dream she has of her atop Dreamfyre at the end of this episode? Or has she had some vision about some horrible fate that could befall her if she chooses to ride Dreamfyre, as that vision seems to begin to show? Rhaenyra speaks to Helaena as a sister, remembering how our father, meaning their shared father Viserys, didn't want to ride Balerion the Black Dread either, having ridden the dragon once in his life and then never again. By the way, Balerion's rider before Viserys was Araya, the daughter of Rhaena, the previous rider of Dreamfyre that was mentioned by Alice Rivers and Aemond last episode. Helaena says in response,
"He did not wish to be changed."
These 2 women debate whether dragons alter them, giving these humans a grander state of importance than they should actually have. The idea of people being changed by their higher status and the privileges they receive throughout their life is an interesting theme that courses throughout this episode. Rhaenyra tells Helaena that she's a Targaryen dreamer, like Daenerys the dreamer who foresaw the doom, and Helaena confirms that she does see flashes, but she only reports seeing a gray mare in this case, and none of the specific people that Rhaenyra hopes to learn its prophecy, like her husband Daemon, or the Winterwolves' progress, or Ormund Hightower's future at Tumbleton. It's because Helena's puzzles don't really come out that specific way. In this scene, Helaena appears to be embroidering a new design. It actually looks like 2 ships. So maybe there are voyages ahead for both of the women in this scene. And specifically for Helaena, a voyage that does not seem to be anywhere in Fire and Blood, and based on her dreams later in this episode, maybe even a voyage south to escape the coming winter. I am just going to keep theorizing ways for our beloved bug girl Helaena to have a happy ending on this HBO adaptation. But the gray mare is an interesting thematic choice. In some media, the gray mare symbolizes feminine intuition. In some ways, this whole HBO House of the Dragon series is an examination of feminine intuition. Meanwhile, Aemond trains with Aegon the Conqueror's Valyrian steel sword Blackfyre and hurts himself, and surprise, this vision of his mother Alicent appears. The fact that she teleported so suddenly into the room is an early clue that this is actually Alice. I don't think we ever see Alice Rivers enter or exit a location. She's always just there suddenly. With every line of this exchange, it's increasingly clear that all is not to be trusted. Alicent is throwing herself at Aemond, and then the editing jump cuts quickly throughout the motions of them on the bed as if it's all kind of happening at once, and then they do this really cool effect where they mix Olivia Cook's audio with Gail Rankin's audio.
In this moment, I will give you a son.
Yes, this illusion has gone too far for Aemond, as the idea of Alicent giving him a son would also be to give him a son and a brother, and thus an odd challenger to his claim to the throne. Aemond wishes he were an only child, and as the illusion drops, we realize it's actually Alice, and Alice asks,
What have you seen?
So from this line, it would seem that Alice was not using Alicent as a disguise to try to deceive Aemond, but rather Aemond was just in some kind of hallucinatory state, seeing Alice as his mother. The seductive spell that Alice has Aemond under, using his mommy issues, has just gone too far for Aemond. And the fact that Aemond can seem to see minutes into the future, is it an effect of the weirwood roots running throughout this room? Is it from Dreamfyre's eggs? Or is it just a side effect of Alice Rivers' witchcraft? I think it must be unrelated to Alice because she does not foresee Alicent coming to Harrenhal, and she doesn't want Alicent there. Aemond seeing his mother during the seduction was an interference to Alice Rivers' plans. So maybe it was even a warning from Helaena and the embroidery that she was stitching. At this point, the real stars of the show to me are Alice Rivers and Helaena. I could watch these spooky ladies speak in riddles for years. Give me double their screen time and half of Mysaria and Ulf's screen time. Aemond is freaked to look up and see his actual mother wearing the exact same furs that she wore in his vision. This vision is much further away from him right now, so naturally he would just see it as another phantasm. Skipping ahead to the later scene that picks up with this, Aemond refuses to look at his mother as she follows him through the castle, as she tries to explain how she and Sir Adrian Redfoot got out of King's Landing and made their way through the Riverlands, avoiding the Wildmen. Then he turns and grabs her forcefully, as if expecting her to be a ghost that his hands would pass through. And then she creeps him out by saying the exact same words his vision had said.
You are all I have left. You're all I have left.
I love how later Aemond echoes this in such a haughty way.
There's nothing for her there. I'm all she has left.
And then after this, outside, Aemond meets Sir Adrian Redfort, and while Sir Adrian gives no tell that he's here to assassinate Aemond, Aemond correctly sizes him up and plays nice while actually readying Aegon's dagger to stick Sir Adrian up through the chin. Alicent doesn't know that Aemond and Alice have been killing every pair of eyes who witness Aemond here, including that poor stable boy in episode 6, but I wonder if Aemond might have also had some vision of Sir Adrian being here to kill him, another part of Helena's warning perhaps. And then again, Alice Rivers just appears behind them. We never see her enter or leave a scene. But jumping back to the river host led by Oscar Tully and Roderick Dustin, marching south, we see the heraldry of House Blackwood, House Tully, House Stark, House Mallister, House Bracken, and riding through and is toting Criston Cole's arrow-stricken head on the tip of the battle axe. We can't show you because of YouTube, but damn, that shot looked great. And this shot even allows the severed head to get really close to camera, which I think it's really just the crew showing off that their prop department and prosthetics team can create really lifelike recreations of these actors' faces and heads for these severed prosthetics. Gwaine Hightower reports that these 20,000 men have crossed the Blackwater Rush and says that they're a day or two away. Ormund says of Criston Cole,
"So your dim but ambitious Dornish friend died in the mud for nothing."
But Ormund hints of another piece on the board, referring not to Corlys, it turns out, but his side chats with Ulf the White. Daemon flies Caraxes to the Eyrie, demanding to know where Rhaena is. I like that this episode even includes this step, when Daemon could have just intercepted Rhaena in the General Vale area. I think they just really love working with Amanda Collin as Lady Jane Arryn, but also, who is this woman sitting on the Eyrie throne with Jane? I believe this is Jessamine Redfort, described in Fire and Blood as Jane's dear companion, and Lady Jane never married, so you know what's happening here. But based on her last name, she would be related to poor Sir Adrian Redfort, Rhaenyra's Queensguard, who accompanies Alicent to Harrenhal this episode and then gets offed by Aemond before he can assassinate the prince. Jane tells Daemon,
"The villagers gossip of a wild girl in the mountains living amongst nettles and sheep."
"How dare you, House of the Dragon writers!" Of course, a nettle is a wild plant that sheds tiny itchy hairs, but yes, book readers know it as the origin of the name Nettles, the dragon rider of Sheep Stealer in Fire and Blood that this HBO series erased and reassigned the character traits to Rhaena. It's a huge bummer considering how awesome Nettles is in the text. Nettles, after all, represents the possibility that anyone, even without Valyrian blood, could mount a dragon, but the HBO series basically did away with that whole possibility. I think they included this line here to shout out that book character, but really anyone who would get the reference would just be perturbed by what we're not getting by the show writing the character this way. Meanwhile, at Fairmarket, Adam and Baela find a huge footprint and a big old turd dropping left, we assume, by Vhagar. I was kind of waiting for someone to say this.
That is one big pile of shit.
Baela laments that Rhaenyra has sent her away from court, treating her as a tool, the same word Ormund will use for Ulf at the end of the episode. Adam asks Baela to appeal to Rhaenyra on the matter of him getting legitimized with a Velaryon name. Baela is right to point out that having a dragon is way better than having a name, but for people like Ulf and Adam, it really is about their societal status and freedom outside of their servitude in a war that they really have no personal stakes in. Specifically for Adam, he hints that he would want to marry a highborn lady, leaning in, but Baela assumes he's talking about his brother Alan, whom she smooched with in episode 6. Before they can talk about this confusion, they spot Sheepstealer. Yeah, but the season is setting up a conflict between Corlys's two sons, the one serving as acting hand of the queen, and the Dragonseed being denied his name, both interested in the same heart. While eating some animal fat, Ormund talks about its nutritional benefit.
I do wonder how something so so slippery in substance can truly be benign.
Yeah, he's saying this to the Lord of the Tides, who has probably eaten his share of fish and eels. This hostage, Corlys, won't drink the wine, assuming this is some kind of final meal, a pigeon pie before the executioner's block, but Ormund suggests that he sees value in the Velaryons. He did tell Daeron in episode 6 that he respected Rhaenyra's choice of Corlys Velaryon as her hand, and Ormund says that the forces of Driftmark won't support Rhaenyra with their lord as forfeit. Daeron out loud disputes Ormund's plan as unhelpful for when the Winter Wolves are going to be arriving to Tumbleton, but in truth, Ormund is having side chats with Ulf all this time, offering him Driftmark and High Tide, so really none of this appeal to Corlys is being done in full faith. Ormund switches to the fruit on the table and suggests that the people of Noth are vegetarians. This is the second time the Isle of Noth has come up on this series. Of course, the island off the coast of Sothros is the home to the butterfly and the caterpillar that Helaena has been fixated on this season. In the world of Ice and Fire, the Nothi are described as pacifists who make music rather than war and kill nothing, eating fruit and never flesh. They believe butterflies are the messengers of the Lord of Harmony and charged with the protection of its people. So really, when it comes to Helena's Butterfly of Noth this season, maybe for her it's just a sign of her pacifism and wanting to use her dragon dreams not to wage war, but to bring peace like the people of Noth. Remember, she told the green soldiers on the battlements this:
I will not have any beast harmed.
Yeah, she was referring to the culture of Noth in that line. And she didn't want to eat food later in the season, but she might have eaten that soup if it was just vegetable broth. This whole worldly knowledge is really the background for Ormund asking the Lord of the Tides why he backs the brutish dragon riders who devour their own, something Ormund brings up after referencing Corlys's dead wife of Rhaenys. For someone like Corlys, the whole tradition of dragon riding might be something that would be spread out all over Essos in the known world anyway. But for him, it really is just the love that he had for Rhaenys that made him so loyal to the Targaryen family. Daeron and Gwaine are unable to see Ormund's ace in the hole of Ulf and the disorder within Rhaenyra's ranks, and they believe that he's sending them straight to their deaths.
The dreams somehow of covering themselves in everlasting glory, somehow transcending humanity's common fate.
Yeah, another way of looking at the show is really the dance between dreamers obsessed with their legacies and practical thinkers just trying to preserve the present peace. Daeron says he's uninterested in Ormund's plan, but also he doesn't want to fly away on Tessarion and be known as a king who abandoned his army to their deaths. I recently heard an ice cream truck drive by my house, and it just rocketed me back to being a kid again. I had such an immediate nostalgia for a simpler time when my main concern was scraping enough loose change to be able to afford a Bubble-O Bill or a Chipwich or really any ice cream. Then I got a Slack notification and my complicated adult life intruded, and it was hard not to feel a sense of loss. My therapist has been great at reminding me that, sure, the idea of having nothing more to worry about in life than your next ice cream cone sounds appealing, but the hard work I put in as an adult to shape my life is way more rewarding, and it gives me plenty of opportunity to just, go get ice cream whenever I want. Therapy really helps me put things in the proper perspective, and BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video, makes starting therapy easy. You take a short quiz, then get matched with a licensed therapist quickly. You can communicate however you feel comfortable, phone, video, or text. If your therapist isn't a good fit for you, you can switch at any time with no additional cost. Over 6 million people to date have gotten help through BetterHelp, earning a 4.8 out of 5 rating on the App Store. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Signing up using our link helps support our channel and lets us keep making videos like the one we'll get back to right now. In Rhaenyra's small council, she taps her finger impatiently as Lord Torrhen Manderly complains about being thrown under the bus for the woes of the small folk, leading to his daughter's doorpost being smeared in shit. He has wisened up on being brought in as a scapegoat, but Mysaria just kinda sips her wine and then they all move on without addressing it. Don't count on this guy being loyal soon. Lady Sabbatha Frey brings up Harrenhal again and Rhaenyra just shuts her up.
Just take it.
It seems as though Rhaenyra is leading the Freys into a trap since Aemond is still at Harrenhal, and I know he's just one guy with a sword, but he's with a witch, and I'm gonna put my money on spooky Alice Rivers enchanting the dishware and furniture in Harrenhal to kill all the Freys, Beauty and the Beast style. Aemond and Baela report seeing Sheepstealer with a new rider, and Mysaria's like, told you so, Rhaenyra! Throughout these scenes, Rhaenyra is trailed by 2 Queensguard knights. I suppose after Sir Adrian Redfort, she now has acquired at least 2 more. I'm assuming one of these is Sir Rickard Thorne, though I'm not sure. One appears to be wearing newer white armor, while the other wears older, more discolored armor. Larys Strong, like Ormund, talks about the delicacies of the world beyond Westeros.
They say it is the strength of the sun in Volantis that makes for such sweetness in the grape.
Of course, the sun wouldn't be any stronger in Volantis, but Larys is really trying to appease Tylan, who we know hates the hot weather in cities like Volantis and Braavos throughout Essos. They find these lowfolk fleeing a pro-Rhaenyra army of the Mutons of Maidenpool, sigil red salmon on white. This trivia point came up in Game of Thrones Season 2 when Tywin Lannister quizzed Arya when she was his cupbearer at Harrenhal.
And who are the lords of Maidenpool? Remind me.
House Muton, my lord.
Then what is their sigil? A red salmon.
Like Corliss at Tumbleton, Alicent now feels like a captive with no appetite as her hosts chow down. Alice Rivers asks how Alicent made this trip up north.
If half the tales I've heard about the King's Road are true.
Hugh Hammer's wife Kat also brought this up to him in the past episode of the season. These roads are not safe for women. Alicent gets impatient with the mystery of Alice Rivers.
I still don't understand who this woman is.
Girl, same, just go with it. Aemond says that Rhaenyra, by bonding dragons to commoners, has defiled the Iron Throne and that he and Alice Rivers will raise their own throne in the mud of the Riverlands.
A new dawn is coming, a new line of unsullied kings.
When we hear the term unsullied, we think of the unsullied sellsword army of Game of Thrones, the eunuchs unable to bear children. Similarly, I wonder if the heirs that Alice Rivers is going to produce for Aemond won't really be through any natural process. Aemond wants Alicent to wait with them at Harrenhal for Rhaenyra's self-implosion, but Alice Rivers doesn't want this mother-in-law around, suggesting that Alicent get her ass back to Old Town.
Our climate doesn't seem to suit her.
Privately outside, Alice Rivers warns that Alicent has a fog that surrounds her. That's really what she was saying by the climate of Harrenhal not agreeing with Alicent. But Aemond defends his mother while Alice says,
The Targaryen boys all want the same thing, don't you?
yeah, that same thing, the love of their mommies. The music of this scene of Alicent finding Sir Adrian's dagger is pretty interesting. It kind of sounds like nothing from the Ramin Djawadi-inspired suite of this franchise. But we are seeing some truly villainous treachery here. A rack focused to some poisonous berries? I think it might be the blue Nightshade Flower. This is the plant that Helaena warned her daughter Jaehaera about in the Red Keep Garden. And I think it's also the blue leaves that Helaena embroidered around Harrenhal on the cloth. The framing of the shot reminds me of Walter White noticing the lily of the valley in the iconic shot of Breaking Bad season 4. Tom Tangletongue returns. He was the stuttering latrine cleaner at Rook's Rest earlier this season. He reveals that it was the sighting of Tywin Lannister and the knowledge that Tywin and only Tywin possesses about the relocated crown's gold that has resulted in Lord Mooten hunting him down throughout the Crownlands. Aegon refuses to be a fugitive and decides to stay in the area where he thinks Sunfyre rests.
I'll make my stand here and be buried as a king with my dragon.
Yeah, he's got this curious look on his face throughout the episode that he thinks he just senses his dragon is still alive who will come rescue him. Aegon allows Larys to leave.
It would be my duty to see that King Aegon is remembered. His heroic last hours immortalized through story and song.
I see this as a meta line that foreshadows Aegon's redemption arc. The historical text of Fire and Blood is much friendlier in its telling of Aegon's journey than it is of Rhaenyra's, and it might just be because Aegon has a much better PR game. This episode hits us with a completely unexpected dance of dragons in the middle of it, an incident not at all described in Fire and Blood. Caraxes catches up with Sheepstealer and uses its long bloodworm neck to bite Sheepstealer and force him to land. And now we get another roar off between old Underbite and old Deviated Septum. Rhaena warns her father that Sheepstealer doesn't heed her, and Sheepstealer jumps high and stomps, causing Daemon to lose his footing, and both dragons threateningly allow the fire to glow in the back of their throats. Rhaena looks awesome here, kind of like Act 2 Elphaba, fully embracing her wild woman reputation, draping herself in sheepskins from the livestock she and Sheepstealer have been dining out on. I mean, she's cool, but she's still not Nettles, and she never will be. Rhaena hopes to redeem herself by hunting down Vhagar, and Daemon offers to team up with his daughter to bring down Vhagar together. Daemon explains how he had no dragon when he was young, and his mother died in childbirth when he was 3, at which point Viserys sunk into sadness. He's really referring to his mother Alyssa, the child of King Jaehaerys I and Queen Alysanne. Alyssa, with her brother Balon, bore Viserys and Daemon, but then died in childbirth for the next kid. Actually, remember, Ulf said that he believed his father was Balon, which would make him a half-brother to Viserys and Daemon, but it was believed that Balon never actually cheated on Alyssa. Alyssa's dragon was Meleys, and Meleys did not go to Daemon and went to Rhaenys, the queen who never was, something that always pissed off Daemon. And Daemon also wanted Balerion the Black Dread, but instead it went to his brother, who only flew this iconic epic dragon once. So Daemon as a kid was kind of like what Aemond was when he was a kid. He claimed Caraxes kind of late, and poor Deviated Septum Caraxes is a dragon that Daemon has always treated like a pet he doesn't really like that much. Now there's a moment these second siblings almost connect over a feeling unaccomplished, but then Caraxes whistles to alert 2 more dragons in the sky, Syrax ridden by Rhaenyra and Seasmoke ridden by Adam. Adam goes running after Rhaenyra, leaving the 2 spouses to shout at each other between 2 dragons they're paired with and 2 other dragons who don't give a fuck about either of them and are probably very confused. This scene was crazy. Please allow me to break it down play by play because it's kind of hard to tell all the fun little beats of the melee when you first watch it. Adam catches Rhaena and drags her back, and now Sheepstealer and Seasmoke roar at each other. I love how throughout the scene the movements of the human riders are mirrored by their dragon dragons behind them. Like, notice Rhaenyra craning forward to look at Rhaena, Syrax is making a similar hunched over pose, Adam right after this looking left past Rhaena at Sheepstealer, and then Seasmoke does the same head turn. As Rhaenyra steps forward toward a kneeling Rhaena, Syrax hops forward a little, ready to Dracarys, but now Sheepstealer responds to that and lunges at Syrax, and all hell breaks loose. Syrax blows fire at Sheepstealer's neck, but old Underbite clamps down on the smaller yellow dragon and thrashes her around, but then Syrax is smaller and nimbler and is able to get 3 or 4 rapid snake bites, and Seasmoke enters the ring and chomps on Sheepstealer from the side, but then Seasmoke gets thrown off kind of like Ralphie tossing Grover Dill when he's beating the shit out of Scut Farkas. But then Syrax pinned, slashes her claws at Sheepstealer's neck, and smoke hisses out. Now Caraxes, the most battle-tested of these 4, and the only one of the dragons with the rider in the saddle, flies in and tackles Sheepstealer. Seasmoke, like Adam, always trying to impress, re-enters and nearly takes out the queen, Rhaenyra, as well as Adam and Rhaena, but Rhaenyra makes Rhaena climb with her up onto Syrax, and I love how in the close-up here, you can see Syrax's tender, wounded flesh from all of Sheepstealer's biting while grabbing these harnesses. You know their hands are like right next to the smoky hot wound. Caraxes and Seasmoke clamp down on Sheepstealer to pin the dragon as it roars, sadly seeing Rhaena go. Daemon sends Adam and Seasmoke to escort Rhaenyra and Syrax, but because it's just Caraxes versus Sheepstealer now, Sheepstealer is able to barely survive it. And look at the dragon crying here. Just like the wobble of his gullet in the opening shot of the season, now the exposed windpipe in his neck really causes it to flap and distorts the sound. Caraxes gets several solid smoky bites on Sheepstealer, but remember, Sheepstealer has that spiky Stegosaurus tail, and he uses it now to tail whip Caraxes, causing Daemon to fall off the saddle. Sheepstealer limps away while Caraxes lovingly sniffs and nuzzles his rider. Now, in the episode, we have this scene with Mysaria and Sylvie in the throne room as they think back on their time on the Street of Silk. Sylvie is the Madam of Mothers, where Mysaria used to work. Sylvie actress Michelle Bonnard is really beloved by the cast and crew, as she used to be the acting teacher for many of the younger actors in the cast. Sylvie can't help but see the phallic symbolism of the Iron Throne.
100 sharp little cocks all vying for attention.
Mysaria offers to be Rhaenyra's proxy to hear petitions now that the queen has ceased this practice for now. Sylvie looks Mysaria up and down and says that her old co-worker has changed, just like Helaena said the dragons changed Rhaenyra, and says Mysaria has draped herself in silk worth a year of her earnings. Mysaria thought she could use Sylvie as a tool and ear to the ground to prevent an uprising. Sylvie just resents being used this way by this sex worker hypocritically presenting herself as a noble. So we have Sylvie, Bela, and Ulf, all operators used as tools by Rhaenyra and her council, tired of being exploited. Sylvie says that these highborns will always see Mysaria as such.
Within the walls of the highborn, a whore will always and ever remain a whore.
Which seems to inspire Mysaria to rekindle her sexual relationship with Rhaenyra in the later scene. Alicent brings in spiced wine for her son and sets these goblets beside Aemond's sword Blackfire and Aegon the Conqueror's dagger. Aemond confesses this to his mother.
I tried to kill Aegon.
I know.
This recalls season 2 episode 5 when Alicent asked Criston Cole what happened at Rook's Rest after seeing Aemond with Aegon's dagger. Now her son confesses to his mother, making it harder for the mother to make her bad boy drink this poison. So we cut from this deadly moment to this skull. This is of course the boiled down skull of the goat herder from the Vale, whom Daemon said was Sheepstealer's rider who killed Jace. Elinda places her hand on Rhaenyra's shoulder, causing the queen to jump. Remember in episode 3 of the season, we saw how Rhaenyra has continued to see the ghost of Jace around the Red Keep. It's interesting how Rhaenyra makes Elinda stay for this argument with her husband Daemon.
No, stay.
Kind of giving this moment a witness to history. I think Rhaenyra wants to keep Daemon honest with Elinda chaperoning the conversation. It doesn't intend to allow Daemon to stay as he tries to apologize for lying to her about Rhaena. The sisters Rhaena and Bela reunite. Rhaena apologizes to her sister, telling her that she's sorry to her that her sister would have been queen had Jace not died in the gullet, but Bela says,
"You will begin anew."
Now detached from Sheepstealer, I do wonder what Rhaena's destiny holds. More on this in the spoiler dungeon. Alan receives a box containing what Ormund cut off earlier, the finger of the hand of his father Corlys, with Corlys's Velaryon ring on it. I do wonder why after receiving the warning on the doublet at the end of episode 6, Rhaenyra didn't really seem to think to do anything to follow up on what that riddle meant. Alice Rivers feeds her owl, and we hear frogs ribbiting in her maester lab. Aemond collapses poisoned, but he's probably not dead. I assume Alice has some herbal remedy. Is Alicent going to get away from this? I have no idea based on the book. Everything that's happening with Alicent here at Harrenhal and all the spooky shit with Alice Rivers and Aemond, none of this happens in Fire and Blood. We're completely in the dark here. But then we get this awesome cryptic dream from Helena's point of view. We see her giving birth, and then this baby, I assume Maelor, is immediately handed off to this Queensguard knight. Then we see Helaena in riding leathers as she sits the saddle of Dreamfyre, the blue she-dragon, roaring in the dragon pit as this mob raids through the doors with the red keep behind them in the distance. She orders Dracarys, and the dragon torches the mob. And now in this pasture by a stony structure, Helaena feeds chickens with 2 children. I'm assuming Jaehaera and Maelor, maybe Jaehaera in a ghostly version of Jaehaerys, but no, I think it's Jaehaera and Maelor. And then we see the gray mare from earlier grazing in the background, and then a solar eclipse forms in the sky as snow falls and the winds of winter gust in. It's kind of like Sarah Connor's nightmare in T2 when she's at the fence with the nukes hitting Los Angeles as she gets blown away by the thermal blast. So this dream of feeding chickens reminds us of what Helaena really wanted to do most back in episode 4 of this season.
I think I might like to keep chickens.
Like the vision Daemon saw at the Weirwood Tree in episode 8 of last season, a vision shared by Helaena, Helaena now sees what Aegon the Conqueror saw, the Song of Ice and Fire. When she spoke of wanting to see the moon in episode 2 of this season, yes, she was also trying to understand the menstrual cycle that she was skipping due to her pregnancy, but also now we see she's trying to make sense of this solar eclipse in her visions, where the moon passes directly between the sun and the earth. As for this shot of her on Dreamfyre in the Dragon Pit, I mean, part of Helaena is imagining herself if she followed Aemond's call to join him in battle. What would it look like if she were to ever ride Dreamfyre? But really, for what's going on in this shot and these other 2 dream shots, we just have to save this for the spoiler dungeon. We see Rhaenyra throwing the skull in the fire, coming in hot from Marvel Studios in 2028. Aegon and Tyland face the soldiers of House Mooten in their final stand. Aegon's reaction here is curious at first, muttering, no, 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 as if he wasn't expecting things to go down quite this way. Yeah, doesn't he have the sense that he kind of had some vision of Sunfyre coming to him in his moment of need? He seems to share some cosmic connection with the dragon that he knew was still alive when he took its scale, a scale that was too healthy. And I think in this moment he realizes he just needs to manifest it with his own dragon-like confidence, kind of like what Viserys told Rhaenyra in season 1, to conjure the illusion in this firelight shadow to intimidate your enemies. It all kind of plays out like cub Simba roaring at the hyenas in The Lion King as a greater threat appears behind him. These Mootens all back away as they hear and see Sunfyre rumbling through the tree line behind him. Aegon's speech specifically mentions the 7 gods. His anointing by the High Septon was one rite of passage that Rhaenyra was denied. He screams that the stranger will take retribution. The warrior's sword will be judgment upon you.
For now you see me as I truly am. Righteous and glorious!
And then Sunfyre, looking like a truly haggard zombie, lumbers up.
Sunfyre. Dracarys.
And I hope you like your salmon smoked. Aegon screaming with mad glee and cackling is honestly one of the most satisfying moments we've had on the show. And I love how in this firelight, you can see his melted flesh matching the wounds of the dragon behind him. I love it throughout this episode. It's really like dogs who look like their owners. And we go from this fire to a humble campfire in a long-awaited ale enjoyed by Ulf the White, given by Ormund at Ulf's campsite overlooking Tumbleton across the river. I mean, just the fact that Ulf is sitting here with the enemy when he should be using Silverwing right now to torch him tells us that this courtship has been in the works for a while. Ormund promises Ulf the castle and lordship that Rhaenyra has been denying him all season. Ulf initially wants Honeyholt, the seat of House Beesbury, in the Reach, referenced by those green soldiers staying with Kat and her brother earlier this season. Ormund says that Honeyholt is a trifle. Oh, the wordplay of it. Honeyholt as a sweet delicacy, a trifle being a sweet delicacy that you eat. And he offers Driftmark instead, promising Ulf full control over Spicetown, or really what's left of Spicetown after the Battle on the Gullet. But from Ulf's perspective, this would mean all the great Volantis wine from Essos, all the other great booze and ale that would be there, and really an island with a view of Dragonstone and a chance to start a noble house with his own descendants. And then as for Ulf's enemies, he says,
they will burn.
Yep, the Battle of Tumbleton is coming next week in the season finale. All right, on to the spoiler dungeon. You can stop watching here if you don't want to know what's coming. I have already talked about what's really coming at Tumbleton in past videos this season, so you should know at this point. Really, the question though is what's going to happen with Corlys. He was not at all at Tumbleton in Fire and Blood. He is here on the show. I'm a little worried that this might be the actor's final episode. But let's talk about Helena's dream. I think she is seeing a future of Maelor being taken away by Sir Rickard Thorne to Bitterbridge. So in Fire and Blood, it's Princess Jaehaera that was taken away by Sir Rickard Thorne when she ends up getting ripped apart by the mob in Bitterbridge. Now I'm worried that this fate could befall baby Maelor. If it does, do not show us HBO. I mean, maybe this is just Helena's fear, and based off of this fear, she knows she's just gonna make a different choice for herself, and that's what the third vision could show us. But the second vision of the dream, I think this is showing us a glimpse of the storming of the dragon pit that we're gonna see in season 4, like a critical moment when most of the dragons will die, and Joffrey will die when he tries to ride Sunfyre. But does this tell us that Helaena will also be there on Dreamfyre? Or is she going to escape and just get a different fate than she gets from Fire and Blood, where, you know, she throws herself out a window? I really want Helaena to have a different fate. I want her to fly like she always wanted and retire on Noth with all those butterflies and the vegetarians. And in fact, this third vision might be showing Helaena exactly why she needs to go to Noth. In fact, this scene here is, I think, where we got those casting rumors of a 10-year-old Jaehaera. That's who we see here. I feel like this moment here is a warning to Helaena that if she were to stay in Westeros, even with her kids alive, the Doom of the North will come and get her. So she needs to get as far south as possible with her 2 kids. And I hope she's able to take young Jaehaera and young Maelor on Dreamfyre's back and settle with this nice gray mare on Noth with all the butterflies. So let's talk about Rhaena's new start. I really hope this series is done trying to make her nettles. It instead allows this young woman to bond with a new dragon hatchling that becomes the pink she-dragon Mourning. Mourning is super important to the lore because it's really the last dragon that hatches in history before the last dragon, the tiny weak one that kind of dies decades after this. In the text, Rhaena has a really interesting story with Mourning, and I hope this HBO series kind of sets it up. The series does seem to be charting a new destiny for Baela and Rhaena, and I hope it takes them to cities like E.T. and the City of the Winged Men and all these other exotic places that the writers this season keep mentioning. Comment down below with what you're hoping to see in next week's season finale. A special thanks to one of our In Our Underground subscribers, GSavvy04, for supporting us at the executive producer level. You can get all of our exclusive bonus content by clicking the link in the description below or going to nrunderground.supercast.com. Big thanks to Studio Tech Brian Kim, New Rockstars editors Joshua Stephen Hurd and Abby Friel, and all of our supporting editors for their work on this video. Follow me at EA Voss, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.